Welcome, Raptors Nation, to another video here on the Basketball Zone YouTube channel. I got my boy Robert to break down the biggest news of the season. It's great news. Pascal Siakam is back. That's right. How you feeling, Robert?
I'm feeling curious, really curious to see what this is going to look like tomorrow.
Okay, so I saw on Facebook you put out a poll. Pretty much you broke it all down into four different lineups. We'll be breaking those down. I am very curious with lineup 1 and lineup 2 because lineup 2 presents so many issues for opposing defenses on so many levels, and we'll break that down in depth. But lineup 1 is more of your traditional, you got your center, but Scottie Barnes has a versatility to be quote unquote the point guard, and I love that too. So kind of go ahead and break that down for me.
Yeah, so with lineup 1, Scottie would become more of a guard in that lineup with OG, Siakam, and Kem. So you do have more of a traditional front court. It's exactly the front court that they had last year in Tampa. And the only real difference here is that effectively you're replacing Kyle Lowry with Scottie Barnes. And I think that's a pretty good fit. It gives Fred that second ball handler in the backcourt. It makes Scottie Barnes more of a playmaker. I think it presents a lot of issues in terms of size. We've already seen what a terror Scottie Barnes is as an offensive rebounder. We've already seen that he's capable of guarding point guards and shooting guards, and frankly, all five positions already. And I think that one of the things that this does, especially with Siakam returning, and I think that it allows Scottie to go back into more of a natural fit for him, which is as a facilitator and a playmaker. A lot of people were saying that, well, he led the team in the summer, not in summer league, in preseason with assists, and then those assists sort of dropped in the regular season. And it's not for a lack of trying. I think that Nick Nurse has over incentivized him. I think there was a game where he took 17 shots, and Nurse was like, I want him to take more. And
Right.
yesterday he took 19 shots, and I would argue Nurse probably wanted him to take 25 shots. And so I think that these reps were important because you're really not going to unlock his passing game until defenses respect him as a scorer. And now that defenses do respect him as a scorer because he's the leading scorer among all rookies, because of that, you can exploit mismatches. So, for instance, if he's a guard, really opposing defenses are in trouble because he's constantly going to be posting up opposing point guards, and there
Right.
just isn't a point guard in this league who can guard him in
Or
the post
shooting guards. Right.
or shooting guard. I would argue there's probably not a small forward in this league that can guard him in the post one on one. They're very few. So he's proven to be pretty adept with his back to the basket and as a post scorer. As we mentioned yesterday's video, for those of you who haven't checked it out, go check that out, where we broke down the close loss to Cleveland. He shot 73%. Last night, notwithstanding, from around the rim, so he's clearly a post. He's a post threat. He's a low post scoring threat. And then once the defense collapses, he becomes a passer out of the post. And I think
Which
that
is
he's
what he
already
wants to
shown
do.
it's exactly what he wants to do. And I think that if you can unlock this guy as your point guard, it also allows Fred VanVleet to become more of a finisher, a little less dribble action, a little bit more pace in the front court. And you're going to have, again, you're replacing really one of the worst starters in the NBA. I don't mean to harp on this with Precious Achiuwa. I'm sure he'll be better because he's just 22. But so far this year, his numbers have put him alone as probably the worst starter in the NBA. And you're replacing with Pascal Siakam. And regardless of how rusty Pascal Siakam is, he's going to be a better finisher around the rim than Precious Achiuwa. And he's going to cause defenses to split out more and cover him further from the basket than Precious Achiuwa. I mean, teams are leaving Precious 20 feet of space, and they're daring him to shoot, and he's not shooting. So it's really cramped up the defense. So I think that this lineup 1 with Scottie in the backcourt and this bigger front court it really does present a nightmare for opposing defenses.
The way I want to present this though is Scottie Barnes in the post, and you have either Siakam or OG, whoever is on his weak side, essentially cutting and having action on the strong side with either Pascal or Van Vliet with some backstreet action going there. So if they cheat on the weak side, you have a wide open three that he can kick out to. It's just so many options open up for this offense, which in theory sounds great. I'm curious to see if they'll execute it that way. What I don't want to see is more Van Vliet on the ball, him trying to break it down, because now you actually have a guy in Pascal Siakam who has that ability, who has the length, who has the strength to break you down and score one on one at a more efficient clip. Not saying that Fred can't do it, because obviously he has done it, but his best game is when he's coming right off the ball with the live dribble and triple threat, because he can step back, cross you over, they get to the rack. I still want him to stop more on the dime for a little floater, which a lot of point guards have now, which is something that he should be looking into just to expand his game and just becoming a better player overall. So those are some of the things that I'll be looking at tomorrow's game. Um, Lineup two is super interesting because now you add a shooter in Trent Jr., who's been playing really good defense. Well, the stats and the analytics will say that, but like both you and I talked about, when you slow the game down, he has made a lot of mistakes, but they've been covered up because, well, the Raptors have great length on the back end. But I think eventually it'll catch up to him and his numbers will, even out. But
Yeah.
you still got to give him effort, like an A for effort for trying hard on defense. And that's a huge improvement from last year, and a big, criticism that both you and I had with Trent. So you add him to the wing. Now you create that gravity where defenses have to stay home on him. And now you got all these lanes open up for guys like OG and Siakam and Scottie Barnes. So I really, really like that three forward modern NBA where, I don't want to put a position on small forward, power forward. I think they're all interchangeable on all three positions.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we go back and forth and wonder how long-term sustainable is it to put a rookie in the post against
Hmm.
opposing centers. And there's this sort of myth that that the center spot is a disappearing position in the NBA. And I just don't think that it is. I think a lot of teams have guys who can have big nights against this team. Rashawn Holmes,
Hmm.
Jared Allen. I mean, these are the lower end of that
Hmm.
spectrum. I mean, on the higher end, you have Nikola Jokic, you have Jonas
Embiid.
Valanciunas, you have Embiid, you have guys who could literally Anthony Davis. I mean, there's just so
Yep.
much size here. That being said, if another team is going to present that mismatch for you on the offensive end, you have to be able to neutralize that on the other end. So I like
Hmm.
this idea because I've alluded to this several times. This front court, future potentially front court of Siakam, OG, and Scottie Barnes. How do you stop that? Because they're all quick enough off the bounce to exploit any power forward or center. There just aren't a lot of, I would say there are no power forwards or centers who can justify, like contain these guys off the bounce. The
Hmm.
issue that Siakam ran into last year and the year before, in the bubble and then most of last year in Tampa, which really hindered his it's just really the double teams that he was dealing with, right? And the fact that he's not the biggest guy, he's not strong enough to post up and just bully ball. He really does rely on quickness. So opposing teams, when they put a small forward on him, like what we saw Boston do in the playoffs when Jaylen Brown was on him, that really does shut him down. If he can't get past the guy, it's game over for him. He's not strong enough to exploit that matchup in the post. Doesn't necessarily have the advanced footwork in the post, and it's just sort of, if you take away that first, blow by little ballerina finish, he's not a lights out shooter. I think Scottie Barnes opens up the game a lot for him because it
No doubt.
allows him to not have to be so on the ball. I think it allows him to do a little bit of what he did with Kawhi. And I'm not trying to compare Scottie Barnes to
Right.
Kawhi. I'm just saying that basketball is a game
He's a better
of
passer
court.
than Kawhi.
He
I'll say
is.
that.
And he definitely is. And one of the things I realized is that basketball, like I was talking to a coach like about 15 years ago. He was an assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs, and he was explaining to me why Rasha Nesterovic and Tim Duncan didn't work out together. And he said they just got in each other's way because they just operate in the exact same places on the court. And I think that that's exactly why the Spurs thrived with Matt Bonner. And that's sort of where I'm seeing, and it's also why Kawhi fits so well with Toronto, because they'd had a guy operating in the exact same spots on the court in DeMar DeRozan. Just Kawhi was like a 30-50% better version of that same
Right.
player. And so with Scottie, we've already seen this work. We've already seen this work because we saw that with Kawhi. Kawhi operated in the mid post. He would draw in a double, and then boom, it was a pass to Serge Ibaka, a pass to Marc Gasol for an open layup. It was a pass out to Lowry. So when a guy can suck in defenses the way that Barnes can, and provided he can create plays out of that action, I think that guys like Siakam and OG, who are elite finishers, Siakam with the cuts and the rim runs, and OG with the open threes. Now, I'm not saying that those guys can't be creators. I think OG has shown so far that he's pretty adept at creating. I think Siakam showed the last 2 years that he's adept at creating.
Hmm.
I just think that having these three guys together in the front court allows you to be a little bit less predictable for the opposing team, because you can literally go to whichever matchup is most favorable for you on any given night, and you can facilitate your offense through these three guys. And I think the front court is definitely the strength. And I think that if Fred and Gary Trent can move over more to like spacers as opposed
Right.
to creators, I think this team can unlock top two, top three team in the East type of potential this year.
I can't say it any better, Robert. Let's quickly go over lineup 3 and 4, which I don't love lineup 3 only because Precious is starting at center. And again, I'm not hating on the man. I just think he shouldn't be starting. He's not a starting caliber center in the NBA. Yeah, he's very young, very raw. We need to see more development from him. Now, I'm not saying to send him to the G League either. I'm just saying, you can learn from being on the bench, have a limited role coming off the bench. I'm not mad with that. So that lineup has Fred, Scottie, OG, Pascal, and Precious. And then lineup 4 has Fred, Gary, OG, Siakam, and Birch, where we don't see Scottie Barnes starting. And to me, that's a no-no. But go ahead real quick and break that down.
I think the problem with lineup three, and again, it's up to Nurse and his coaching staff how they see that playing out. I think the problem with lineup three is that Scottie, as good as he's been in the mid post, he's not a shooter. Like
Hmm.
he's not a guy that people hug at the line. And Precious is a complete non-shooter right now. Teams, as I mentioned, are giving him 20 feet of space. I think that these two guys together on the court is a big no-no.
Yeah.
I think there are three non-shooters really in Toronto's top nine in Banton, Barnes, and Precious. And I would argue that two of those guys give you so much on all the other facets of the game that they should be on the court.
Right.
They probably shouldn't be on the court together. So spacing out Barnes's lineups, Barnes's minutes and Banton's minutes, and getting them more on the ball means that there's so much more gravity on the court, right? So we've often seen the Raptors entertain lineups with Fred and Banton and Barnes and Precious, and you just neutralize all the good with so much bad
Right.
spacing in that lineup. And Fred VanVleet is consistently hurling up like floaters, not floaters. We know Fred VanVleet does not do floaters.
Yeah.
Layups, contested layups at the rim over three defenders. And it's like, why are those three defenders there? Because the other guys who are supposed to be pulling those defenders out are being left unguarded because they can't make threes.
Hmm.
So I don't like lineup three because just for the simple reason that it puts Precious and Scottie together in the same lineup. And I don't like that pairing. I don't like that pairing at all. I liked it a little bit in Summer League because Precious was pulling in Summer League. He was showing this willingness to shoot threes. I think his confidence is really rattled. And I think, as much as people think that I've been very hard on Precious Achua, I'm not being hard on the guy. I'm just looking at the freaking numbers. Like I'm not biased. The numbers are not lying to you. This guy has been really, really bad. And if his confidence is shaken, which is definitely possible, they need to get him onto the bench, get him some run against opposing teams. And so the fourth
But it's
lineup,
just not the
what
numbers, real quick. It's just more of his feel of the game. It's not there yet. We can't lie about that, man. Like it's just not there.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He is 22 years old. I want to just
Right.
preface
That's my point.
everything I'll
Yeah.
say with he's 22. He's got a
Yeah.
lot of physical tools, right? But you and
Yes,
I
he
know that
does.
there are a lot of players in this league that have
Marvin
all the
Bagley has all
speed.
the physical tools. They don't mean nothing. They don't mean nothing.
Yeah, honestly, I wish I had a dime for every time you take a dig at Marvin Bagley because I would be a very rich man right now. Every
Uh,
freaking video, whether it's Kings or not, it's just like Marvin
uh,
Bagley. It's like, wow. But no, I agree with you. There's a mental component to this game. The most important 6 inches is not the wingspan, it's not the height, it's the 6 inches between the ears. And Precious Achua is pressing right now hard. It's
Mm,
clear that he's in his own head. And I'll argue, as someone who's watched a lot of players who are really great in practice, but then the minute the game turns on, they look like deer in headlights. Sometimes it's just nerves that players just start to press. I'm seeing it with Cade. I'm seeing it
mm,
with Jalen Suggs. A lot of these guys are just pressing because there's a lot of pressure that comes with being a high pick or whatever. And so with Precious Achua, again, is I don't want to spend too much time talking about this guy because I feel like this is going to result in a lot of hate for this
yeah.
video. But I will say this: he had a really he. If you're an NBA rookie coming into the league, you couldn't pick a more dream scenario than ending up in Miami and then Toronto. Like,
Yep.
that is Heat culture and Raptor culture.
It's
I mean,
great.
the only thing that he could do, like, if he had a genie with 3 wishes, then next year he's in San Antonio under Popovich or something. Like,
Mhm.
so I look at a lot of players in this league that are in inoptimal situations, probably with coaches who don't put them in positions to succeed. And I just think that Eric Spoelstra and Nick Nurse are amazing coaches. So this is a little, tryout, I guess, for Precious Chua, because, Masai Ujiri falls in love with guys who show out at Basketball Without Borders, and he's a Nigerian guy, and, he's a young kid with all the potential in the world. But if you can't thrive under Eric Spoelstra in 1 year and they trade you, and now you can't thrive under Nick Nurse, I mean, you need to take a look in the mirror, because you're a problem. So yeah, and then with the fourth lineup, you might not like Scottie Barnes coming off the bench. I
Yeah.
honestly see the upside. I see the upside on it. Number one, he's literally capable of plugging into every single position.
For sure. Yeah.
Number two, I think it gives him more offensive opportunities with the second lineup, and hopefully spaces out his minutes away from Fred VanVleet a little bit more. Because if Fred VanVleet goes to 33 minutes, I would like to see Scottie Barnes on the floor for the 15 minutes he's not on the court, because I don't like the chemistry between these two players. I've seen, I mean, again, fans will point to the fact that I'm hating on Fred, which I'm not
Mhm.
really, and fans will probably point to a couple of adorable
You're a
moments
hater.
Fred hater. Uh, but I have seen way too many times where Scotty's had a clear mismatch in the post. I mean, yesterday, how do you not exploit Scottie Barnes on Colin Sexton in the post up? How do you not exploit that? That's like a 7 inch advantage and a huge mismatch. And Fred just looked him off. So I see that happen too often. I would like to see Scotty have had the opportunity. He did come off the bench for Florida State. He clearly knows how to do it. And again, the downside with putting Gary Trent on the bench is, when you look at this guy's numbers off the bench, he's a different player. And for all the worst, like, he sucks off the bench. So I think there has to be some way to keep Gary Trent starting, because whether he starts or comes out the bench, he's taking 17 shots like every game.
Mm.
So I would rather that he make 7 of those shots than 2 of those shots. So I think he's almost holding the Raptors hostage, basically saying, "You're going to start me, or I'm going to play like absolute dog shit." So
Yeah.
I think you have to start him. I don't necessarily hate Scottie Barnes coming off the bench. I'll be honest with you. He's really my favorite rookie in the world. I think he's awesome. He's talented enough to start. He probably should finish games, but
Oh,
I
for
wouldn't be
sure.
I wouldn't be opposed to him coming off the bench.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm on board with lineup one. I'm on board with lineup two. I hate lineup three,
Mhm.
and I'm cool with lineup four. If they want to go with lineup four, get Pascal and OG, and get these guys a few more touches. I'm personally worried that Scottie Barnes' touches are going to go down like heavy with Siakam back. I'm personally worried about it, because among the guys who are currently on the team, I think the two guys who are most likely to sacrifice touches for Siakam are the two guys who should
Scotty.
be getting most touches, is OG and Scotty. I don't
Mhm.
think Fred VanVleet's going to take less than 16 shots a game. I don't think Gary Trent's going to suddenly stop shooting 15, 16 shots a game. And Siakam's going to have to find his touches somewhere, right? And I don't want those touches necessarily to be at the expense of guys who, in my opinion,
But
Scotty
they
and
will.
OG, are
But
more
they will.
efficient.
But they will, because both you and I know they will. You know.
Yeah, that's sort of the catch-22 with Siakam coming back. It's just such a great defensive experiment, I think, for the league.
Yes.
Just
I can't
to
wait.
see something so amazing. I think it presents a lot of offensive versatility. I do worry about the shot distribution just because Nurse isn't a micromanager of shot. I know coaches in the NBA that are like dictating, like, this guy's going to get 20 shots a night. And I know coaches that are just like, okay, whoever wants to shoot, shoot, as long as you're playing defense. And Nurse is more to the latter. So if Scottie completely compromises touches, I hope that he at least gets what I don't want to see is this guy basically becoming a guy who just stands in the corner and does nothing. Basically what Marcus Smart thinks he is in Boston's offense right now. I don't want to see him languish like that. And I know that he will do that if he feels like it's good for the team, because he's a very, very unselfish team first guy. But I think that they have something really good going on with Scottie's development. I don't want to see it completely sacrificed to appease Pascal and Fred's, two-way impact. Yeah.
Coach Nick Nurse is a macro leader, not a micro manager to me, and that's why I love Nurse. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Check out the rest of our Raptor coverage on this channel. It's growing. We love Raptors Nation, and we have other film breakdowns. Both Robert and I will also be covering guys like Franz Wagner and, Duarte and the other top rookies.
Let's do a top 10.
Love basketball.
let's do a rookie top 10. I really want to do that. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much on behalf of the entire Basketball Zone family. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.